This episode is sponsored by Evolve Bootcamp, my outdoor functional fitness program that delivers a sense of warmth, friendliness, and spirit, along with butt-kicking, hellishly fun-filled workouts, evoking the idea that everybody that exercises outside does so without boundaries and naturally evolves. Class begins at 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. Mention this podcast and come by for a free trial class at the Boston Common if you dare. Welcome to the Evolve WMMA podcast featuring the greatest upcoming female warriors on the planet. They are women who have gone against conventional thinking to pursue their dreams. These fighters inspire, empower, and unleash excellence within a new generation of female warriors as they rise and evolve into the best possible version of themselves through the power of mixed martial arts. Hey, this is Evolve WMMA, and I'm your host, Shelly Devon. So this week's guest is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, a licensed mental health counselor who runs her own mental health counseling practice, as well as an Invicta FC Atomweight. She's 4-2 with a recent unanimous decision win against Linda Mihalec. I'd like to welcome to the show Invicta FC Atomweight fighter Jillian DeCoursey. Well, welcome to the show, Jillian. It's so great to have you here at Evolve WMMA podcast, and congratulations on your recent win. I'm sure you must have been thrilled. It was a tough battle, but you got it done, and it was a great fight.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm. This is the first time, obviously, that I've had a chance to get a hold of you. I think I've reached out in the past. And you've just been extremely busy with preparation for your fights. You've been with Invicta for a while now.
Yeah, it's been like 2.5, 3 years maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you've had most of your professional fights through Invicta. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, I've had 5 of my 6 with them.
Cool. And are you 4-2? Is that correct?
Yep, 4-2.
Okay, and that includes the recent win.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, how did you feel overall with your win against Linda Mihalec?
I knew it was going to be tough going in. I'd watched her fights. And I knew she was a grappler, so we were going to be kind of grinding it out against the cage, and then just seeing who's going to get the better positions on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely felt really good to kind of get that hand raised. And, just kind of knowing what the game plan was going in, and for it to actually kind of play out that way is always nice.
Yeah, for sure. I know you had a couple of tough losses back to back last year. And how did that affect this fight going into it?
It definitely felt like a little bit more pressure, even though, I did, have a win in November, but it was outside of Invicta. So I felt pressure kind of that, okay, I have to get the win now. I kind of dropped 2 in a row under the Invicta banner. So it was like, all right, you know what? We need to get back on top.
Right, exactly. So now you're climbing your way back up. Are you, have you had any thoughts about who you might face next? Who would be the logical challenge for you as you move forward into 2020? Because I mean, it's early on. You'll probably hopefully have another fight this year.
Yeah, I'm hoping to stay as active as I can this year. Since going pro, it's been difficult to stay as active as I would like. But since I'm off to a good start so far this year, hoping to at least get a few more in before the end of the year. And, kind of mix it up in between, like, my Invicta fights, and then, trying to take things outside to, just build up that record and just keep, getting the experience and going from there. But, as far as, who comes next, for me, it's never, I don't really care who it is. It's always if a fight gets offered, unless the only times I'm saying no is if it's like, hey, you call me on a Monday and you're like, hey, do you want to fight Friday?
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, all right, you know what, then that's different. But other than that, as long as there's notice, it's pretty much whoever gets put out on the table is like, yep, let's do it.
That's great. It's great that Invicta, I always say this, that, Shannon Knapp will allow you ladies to move into other, like you can go and fight someplace else, I mean, I think she's very generous about that, in maintaining her promotion, because for a little while there, there was some skepticism on, is the atom weight division deep enough?
Right.
And of course it is, but some people have speculated, on that regard. And it's like, okay, do we have enough fighters here for, to keep this ongoing? And of course we want to see that. I mean, you as a fighter definitely want to see that, but you also want to take opportunities elsewhere. So your fight, the last fight you had prior to this one that you beat Linda in, where was it again?
I fought for Cage Fury, CFFC.
Is it a local fight, or where are they out of?
Yeah, well, they do a lot of their cards out in like Atlantic City and like Pennsylvania, but the one I had was down in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually on the military base down there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of the cooler events I've done, because it was fight for the troops event. So having the troops
nice.
there, and like their energy is insane. So it brought a whole different element to the fight, because
Mm-hmm.
You just have people screaming and going nuts, and
Mm-hmm.
the way they set it up on the military base was really, it was definitely really cool.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Was it to raise some money for the troops, or
I think it was just more like just to kind of bring some entertainment to them, and kind of give back a little bit.
Cool. That's awesome. And your opponent, who was she?
That was Katie Perez.
Okay. Does she fight outside of that too? She sounds familiar.
She actually stepped up when I fought her, and she made her pro debut against me.
Okay.
It was definitely really impressive that she was willing to like step up and take a challenge where, we were looking for fights for probably about like a good 6 months, and like we couldn't get anyone to step up. And then, you have this girl that's like making her pro debut and is like, hey, yep, I'm up for the challenge.
Wow.
So, I give her so much respect for that.
That's awesome. Wow. That's really cool that she would do that too against somebody who's been fighting in Invicta.
Yeah. She put up a good fight.
Yeah. Wow. So tell me, how did you get involved in mixed martial arts? How did this all start for you?
So I played in college. I played basketball. I pretty much played basketball, soccer, volleyball, softball, like every sport you could think of that like involved the ball growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty much when I graduated and I was no longer, I was playing like basketball, like on like some like club leagues and things like that, but it wasn't the same intensity. And it was just kind of something where it was like, my ex at the time, he was like, he wanted to get into training, and it was like, hey, yeah, let's like, sounds like something cool. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of grew from there. I got really into jujitsu, and I was doing that for a really long time. And my coach just saw us like kind of just messing around, joking around in the gym one day. And we were like kind of doing some like fake MMA sparring nonsense. And he was just like, hey, do you want to do a fight? And it kind of just went from there. I did one fight, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. And then it just blew up.
Wow. That's really cool. And how long ago was this when you jiu-jitsu? How many years?
Jiu-jitsu I've been doing for about like 10, 11 years.
Okay. That makes sense, because you're a brown belt. Belt. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of investment for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, right now my jiu-jitsu is more MMA based. I don't, when I train jiu-jitsu, it's all, well, what's going to work for a fight? Because in my eyes, I'm like, that's something I can always easily transition back to straight jiu-jitsu when I'm done fighting, because you have less of a timestamp with that. Right.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. So that's really cool. So you've been at this for a long, long time. And what was, it was just out of fun. And then you just discovered, hey, I want to get in the cage. Or what? Yeah, I'm always fascinated because, you're a very well-educated woman, and we'll get to that later. And I'm like, people are going to want to know, what would possess you to get in the cage and have somebody trying to, like wreak havoc on your body, like
Right.
no end. And it's like, what type of mentality does that take for you? I mean, it's you against somebody who wants to basically murder and maim you.
No, it is in the most civilized way possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, my mom always puts it, she's like, you're just an adrenaline junkie. That's what it is.
I've heard that one a lot too. Adrenaline junkie.
Yeah. So it really, like, honestly, it just kind of happened. I've always been someone that it's like, oh, okay, you put the line here and I'm going to go, way above and beyond that. And, it started with jujitsu, and then it kind of just happened. And then it was like, once I got the taste of that first fight, that first experience, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what I need to do.
Yeah. Is it a visceral kind of feeling that you get inside, like that? It's really kind of primal or of some kind. Do you think it's like that?
In a sense, it makes you feel, it's a challenge against yourself, right? You're battling yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally. And it's really just a true test to where you're at. And, you get like this high, this feeling that you really can't explain unless you've experienced it. And most of the time when fighters kind of talk to each other, it's like we all have like the same feeling where it's like, yeah, you just can't explain like what it is that it does for you, but it really does make you feel alive. But at the same time, it's not something that everyone can do, because I know plenty of people that even have just given just training a try and are like, no way, I can't do this. And then other people, trying a fight and like, no. I mean, like,
for even you going in, you have the potential to receive damage, considerable damage, but then you also have the opportunity to give damage. And there's something a little like twisted about that.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I get it. I mean, not that I've never been in the cage and had I had one kickboxing match, and I knew what that felt like. And I'm like, wow, like to actually get in there and beat the shit out of somebody, I gotta think that's pretty good feeling. And knowing that they're going to bring their best to you. I mean, it isn't a civil,
right. It's not one side. It's not like you're finding some scrub and you're like, all right, I'm just going to beat you up.
Yeah. But I guess I'm curious because what some of our viewers might not know about you, you're a mental health professional and you counsel.
Yes.
So this is like a great topic to be talking about, and how you might relate this. I mean, do your clients know this about you?
Yeah, I would say most of them know, because I mean, when you're going to see a therapist or, sometimes even a doctor in general, what are you doing? You're Googling them, right? You want to research them, especially I find with, seeking therapy or seeking counseling. People tend to Google and do their research on the individual that they're going to see a lot more than maybe going to see a regular doctor, more on like the personal level, because it's a different type of connection and it is a relationship. So you need to know about the person that you're going to see. So sometimes, a lot of times people come in like right off the bat, and sometimes that's a little bit more reason why they do choose me to come see, because they're like, wow, this is like interesting. Like I want to, and then other times it'll just come out throughout like, treatment that, maybe I have like a blemish or a bruise on my face or something. And, usually if that happens and it hasn't come up before.
We're just going to pause you on there. I'm like, we got to do a scenario. Because I'm like, oh, I'm coming in for my first session. What the hell? She's freaking a woman. She's got a black eye. I don't know what's going on here. She battered? What is this?
Yeah.
No, she goes in there and actually wants to have that done to her. I'm thinking, like, how does that, I mean, like, how does that, like, I mean, how do you deal with that when somebody's looking at you, you got like a bruise and you're trying to be serious? I mean, I love the fact that you do this, but I just find like this could be a sitcom. It would be a great sitcom.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's two opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm just upfront with it. And because my view of it is, it's like, if it's someone that I've been working with for a really long time and it just hasn't come up yet, it's like, hey, we already have this relationship. So I'm gonna let you know, hey, this is what's kind of going on. If it's someone new, I don't bring it up, like I said, unless it's something where I feel like I need to. Like if I have a black eye, even if you try and cover it up, you can.
Yeah.
So I just pretty much open up the dialogue with it. I'm like, hey, this is what, my other profession is this, and this is kind of what, I do. And I haven't, honestly, I've been doing private practice pretty much since I started fighting, which is a good, 4 or 5 years. And I've never had anyone that is like, no, I don't want to see you because of your other profession. I actually find it kind of does the opposite. Because it makes it more human, and it is something so different and so, on the other side of the spectrum that usually, people are intrigued by it, and it, I feel like it helps our therapeutic relationship.
Sure. Do you ever use like, whole pants for somebody? Like, get it out of your system, punch something, because I always say that freaking hitting a bag is the best therapy out there. Like you can get all your aggression, everything, all your emotions, you can put it in a bag, or if somebody's holding mitts for you. I know with some of my clients, I'm a personal trainer, and so sometimes I'll break out the focus mitts when they have an issue, and I'm like, go sit down. And we just start laughing. It's like, it puts them in such a better mood for sure, because they just get that whatever's going on out of them.
Right.
So do you ever run into that?
No, I don't. I keep it very, very separate. Down the line, I have some ideas of things that I want to do when I'm done fighting, to try and bring things together and take like a little bit different perspective on therapy. But right now I keep my lives very, very separate. It's literally like, alter egos.
Sure. Yeah. It sounds like you're a superhero. You're like Clark Kent, take off the glasses, boom. Supergirl,
100%. It's like I go through on my car ride over to the gym from work. It's like I go through my transition.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, like, that is totally like that. This is so cool. I'm like, I love this. I love this about you. When I got your questionnaire, and I was like, oh my God, wow. I'm like, is she old enough to be like? That's another thing I'm thinking. I'm like, is she old enough to be? She doesn't even look old enough to be. I'm like, that's really awesome. I think it's really great that women who are in this profession of women's mixed martial arts, they always have this other side that is so, above and beyond. I think they have an other career, and then they're somehow managing, a professional fight career too.
Right.
Which is, I was on the other day, earlier this week, with Miranda Maverick, and she's going for her PhD, and I'm like, wow, she's 22 years old. She's a fighter. And we were talking about, being able, what the choice would be like, would you sacrifice, like, would you become, if you had the pay, would you be a full-time fighter to be going for, a championship belt?
Right.
Because obviously she was saying that, you have to be full-time to really, dominate in this field. And for her, it was that. I mean, how would that be for you? Are you kind of toying with that? I know, like, after those 2 losses against, you had Kelly D'Angelo and Alicia Zapatella, and you kind of had to rethink your, where you were in all this. I mean, you obviously have a great profession outside of, MMA, but it's like, what's keeping you in it? And I liked your answer, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more in depth about, what your why is, and why you're still doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like I'm so lucky, and just because of the way I kind of set up my my career outside of fighting, I get to work for myself, so I 100% can make my work schedule and make when I see clients around my training and my fight schedule, and I don't have to ask a boss for time off. I don't have to work within a system. I get to work within my own system. So it allows me that freedom where I do train full time. I often train, like 6-7 hours a day, especially when I have a fight. And then I still, I'm able to work full time. So for me, it's not really, there isn't really a need to make a choice, because I'm able to do both and, put 100% into both sides of it. And, I am lucky with that, because when you work a regular full-time job, you can't do that. And, I have the luxury of, doing therapy where you have different options. We have, I do, most of mine are like in-person sessions, but there's, sometimes we're doing video sessions. And, so it does give you a bit greater sense of freedom, where, you can make things work within unconventional times.
Sure. How do you acquire your clients? You're self-employed. How do you acquire them?
I did most of mine now. I'm at like word of mouth. And it's just, I use online databases, a lot of insurance companies, and I don't really market myself. I don't try and, go out and really get people to come to me. It's kind of just, I've been in my own space now, my own practice for, it's been like 2-3 years. And now it's just been being in the same place for so long. It's just flowing and happening.
That's awesome. It sounds like I'm doing this course, and I've always been about having a holistic life, meaning, integrating all aspects of your life so you have the most purposeful, kind of joyful life, and integrating that, like my martial arts, my athleticism. I teach an outdoor fitness boot camp. I've kind of integrated that, and then I also have a spiritual healing side that I used to joke with people. I'm like, yeah, I can heal you and I can maim you all in the same breath. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You could do that. So, have you thought a lot about how it sounds to me like you are integrating your lifestyle where everything makes it simple and easy, where you're not taking, say, an outside job, working at, I'm just going to say like CVS or something,
right.
Or, just some other, outside career path to fortify and, your fight career, where a lot of fighters are doing that, male and female. Instead, what you're doing for your success is saying, okay, I really want to help people. And I like this, mental health kind of, and being a counselor for people. But then I'm going to integrate it into my life where I can still fight and do that. It sounds amazing. Does it come through like in a spiritual sense for you, or how do you kind of, how did you get on this path of figuring this out to be able to do this for yourself, where you're in the driver's seat and not external forces? You're taking care of your financial, what you choose for a career, keep maintaining your own health through exercise. How did you kind of come to be able to do that and pull it all together?
It was definitely, it was like stepping stones, right? When I first started, because you can't go into private practice right off the bat. It's just not, I don't think it's a good idea, just because you don't have the skills yet. Some people do it that way. I don't think that's the best way to do it. I worked a lot of stepping stone type jobs. I knew at some point I wanted to, work for myself. Even before I started fighting and really getting into that side of it, I wanted to, run my own thing. And I wanted to be able to do things my way. I worked a lot in hospitals. I worked in a juvenile detention for a while. And I did that all as ways to kind of build my skills. And my view was I want to work in the trenches, and where people are at their sickest, and then later on be able to transition where, people are actually seeking help. They want it. And it's a different world when people are coming to you because they want it. I work a lot with adolescents, and it's different. When I was working in the hospital, I was in the juvenile detention. they were forced. They were being forced to get help. Now my adolescents are actually ones that have approached their parents and like, hey, these things are going on. I need, I want to talk to someone. So it's a very different world when people are coming to you because they want help. And it just kind of naturally, the transition happens. While I was working at the juvenile detention, I started just doing hours within a group practice, private practice on Saturdays. And then I saw how that was flowing and I was like, wow, wait, like, this could be something here. Yeah. So then I pretty much just took a chance, and I was done with a lot of the drama and a lot of the chaos and the nonsense that I had to deal with within the system. And I was like, I'm just going to take a chance. I'm just going to jump in and try and do this private practice thing full time. And worst thing that's going to happen is it's not going to work. And then I'll just go back to, something else. Sure. And, so far it's working out. So I'm okay.
Wow. That's awesome. What are 3 things that you attribute, your success as a professional, say fighter, and a professional, mental health expert, counselor?
I think, the biggest thing is like, if I get something in my head that, all right, I want to do this, I just do it. And things just kind of like happen like that. I don't really plan too much. I'm a little impulsive, but it's always impulsive in a goal-directed way. It'll be like, I'll wake up and be like, all right, we're going to do this, and plan it out and do it. And then things kind of flow. But I think it's really just kind of pushing yourself and taking yourself out of your comfort zone. If you stay in that safe zone, yeah, you're safe, but you're never going to achieve. You're never going to grow. Sometimes you have to take that leap of faith and just jump and see what's going to happen and see where you land. And if you need to pick up the pieces, you pick up the pieces, but don't be afraid to take that leap. Yeah.
Well, fear is a major halter. Everybody has certain things that they're afraid of, I guess. And then they, to overcome those fears. What would you say has been one of your fears, and how did you maybe overcome it to become the person that you are today?
I think this is a common fear too, like just like that fear of failure, and whether, or, and letting people down. But, I know deep down inside that, as long as you're trying and you're trying to do the best you can, you're not going to let people down. And, as far as fear of failure, if you never try, then you can never fail, but you can also never succeed. So, that kind of that carrot of success kind of helps beat the fear of the failure, because it's like, all right, well, I'm really afraid of failing, but you know what, that prize of success is more of a driving force.
What would you say was your biggest failure, and then how did you overcome that? What were the steps to overcome that failure? There's something that really kind of rocked you and you were like, wow, I'm really feeling this, and how do I kind of, move forward? Because we all, in all aspects of our lives, we're dealing with some forms of failure, and we need that mental aptitude to, okay, what is it going to take here, and then put it in our heart to overcome it. It sounds like you have a lot of that already. You already have the self-discipline, you commit, you focus. But what is, prior to having that maybe, and you had a failure, what was it that, got you over that?
It's kind of hard to think of like now, because in like retrospective, you don't really think of it like now. I don't think of anything as a failure, because they're all life lessons, right? That, and even though at the time, even if you kind of view, you could view it as a failure, but that's overly negative. That's only going to put you in a bad place. So for me, it's never about like, thinking back like, oh, those were failures. No, those are learning lessons, and that was my journey, and those were things that maybe I needed to happen at that time in my life to be able to grow and move forward, and then get to the places that I want to be. And I try and approach like everything with that mindset of just, all right, even if something stings or hurts or isn't the direction I wanted it to go, well, maybe this is what I needed, and maybe this is, where my path is and my journey is. And we need to take detours sometimes to get back on track.
Sure. Now, do you feel like emotions, whether or not you're highly emotional or not emotional? I mean, has there been any instances where, say your emotions got really rocked and you felt a loss and you're like, okay, how do I, because I mean, on a spectrum, you go from loss to, up the spectrum to anger to,
Right.
At peace with, and then understanding, and then maybe it gets to love and joy and bliss. I'm like, when you've had, like, I mean, you came off of those two losses, and I know you had said you had to reevaluate where you were in the fight game, and if it's something maybe that you wanted to continue with, or why you were fighting, you had to bring joy back into it. How did you manage that to come back and now have 2 wins under your belt after those 2 losses against Kelly and Alicia?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the one against Alicia definitely hit me a little more because that was my first pro loss, and it was my first loss in a really long time. But there was a lot of factors going into that fight that led to it. I took the fight on 10 days notice. I cut like almost 20 pounds in that time.
Wow.
There was just a lot of and then I had I was actually out of training for a little bit because I had gotten something like a skin issue. So it was like a lot of things that, like, when looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I wasn't like fully in
Right at the top of your game.
Yeah, but that's at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't matter. I still accepted the fight, I took it. But that one hit me and really rocked me and shook me. And then on top of it, just going through stuff in like my personal life at the same time. But it was kind of like what I just let myself kind of go through it and kind of sink a little bit and just feel those emotions. And then it was kind of like you just take that big deep breath, and I was like, all right, let's pick up the pieces, let's get back in there, and let's see what we can do and rise above.
That's awesome. So you really were digging deep.
Yep.
Yeah, digging deep. And what was your why to come back, and that brought you to that place of, oh, I want to feel joy again, and brought the joy back into your training? Because I mean, I can imagine if you're coming off a loss and your heart's not into it, and you're like in there, going through the motions of your training because you're devoting a tremendous amount of time to that, and you're not in your groove emotionally, mentally. What was it that just was that turning point and say, oh my God, this is what I love and this is what I'm supposed to be doing? What took you from one place to the next place to bring that joy back in your life?
My main coach at Ring Sport Muay Thai, Eric Ruiz, he was really good with kind of like, understanding where I was at and like talking me through it, and just, kind of helping me like realize like, hey, well, why are you doing this? If you're not having fun doing this, then you shouldn't be doing it, right? And he kind of just talked me through like his journey and, how he kind of what when he was fighting, things that he had went through and the ups and downs and the emotions. And it was just kind of listening to the things that he was telling me and just sitting back and just being like, well, why is it that I do this? Wait, I'm doing this because I really enjoy doing this. Yes, it's competitive, and I am a super competitive person. Yes, absolutely. But really the underlying is that, this is something that I truly, truly enjoy and, want to be doing. So let's get back to finding that joy and not making it a chore or a job, because at that point, then, if it's not something that I am enjoying, I shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Wow. Yeah. So what goals do you have moving forward, say within, in the next 3 years? What are some of the things that you'd like to accomplish? You've already accomplished so much, and it's like, wow, what, I mean, cause you're a competitive person. So I'm assuming, and I think most people that are involved in martial arts, and especially MMA, they're competitive with themselves, truth be told. It's like, okay, how can I improve myself? So what are the next goals for you? Say within the next, 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 goals.
I mean, I want to, definitely just immediately for this year. I just want to get, as far as like, fighting goes, I want to get in as many fights as I can. I'm already looking to get back into the cage, like as soon as possible. and just, just keep building up and just seeing where it goes. I don't have, people ask me a lot of times like, oh, what's your end goal? Like I don't have an end goal. It's a journey, and I just want to see where the journey takes me. And, wherever that journey goes is, I'm along for it. I'm going to, put my pieces in play to kind of guide it, but I'm not about, there is no, I don't have an end goal with it. It's just keep doing this as long as I can, as long as I'm enjoying it, and as long as, life's allowing me to. And then as far as like, my outside of fighting life is really just, enjoy as much as possible. Kind of set things up where I have, things going for me for the future, and, try and just keep building my practice. I'm starting to try and take on, bring on like, other therapists and, kind of have, get them under my wing and, be able to just expand the practice.
Wow. That's cool. So very, very focused minded for the next few years, for sure, in your profession, in your profession. So who has been an inspiration for you? Somebody that you have looked to ever since, you can remember, I guess, and is a driving force within you. Everybody has somebody that inspires them just a little bit. So I was kind of curious who yours might be.
Yeah, mine is definitely my mom. She's always been, she's always had my back no matter what. And it's the smallest thing is like a victory for her. And as long as I'm happy and I'm doing something that I love, she's happy and she's supporting me and, she's cheering me on. And just, seeing things that like she's went through and, how she's always just kind of persevered and, always, came out on top. And, I think I get a lot of my, my aspirations and my driving force, from her.
How does she feel about you being a fighter?
She knows I love it, so she's okay with it. Obviously, she liked me to do something calmer, but everybody, my whole family knows how I am, and they know, you say, oh, let's do A, and I'm like, no, let's do Z. So it's kind of expected at this point.
Now, do you have other siblings, sisters, brothers, or?
I have a younger brother, but he passed away last year. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's tough. That's really tough. I've lost a sibling too. My sister a few years back, very young. And so that's a tough loss. I'm sorry to hear that. Has that helped you or, put a little rift in your fight career at all when those sorts of things, how do you manage going through that and then still keeping focused and not letting that emotion get a hold of you while you're, training to get in the cage?
I think it definitely, my fight with Kelly in June, it was only a couple months after he had passed. Yeah. And I thought I was in a better place with it than I was. But it was I used training as my coping mechanism. Sure. And it definitely, after the fact and looking back and reflecting on that fight, my head wasn't in it. My head was, distracted, and it wasn't as healed as I thought it was. Yeah. But, then after the fact of looking back and reflecting on that, I definitely allowed myself and gave myself time to be like, okay, we got to mend some of these wounds.
Yeah. The funny thing is about those sorts of wounds is you don't really know. Sometimes, especially when you're in getting in the cage is a high stress situation. Okay. And when you're coming off of some sort of, emotional, tragedy or, something that significantly, hurts you, your soul, your heart, your being, because it's something you've had all your life. And then all of a sudden it's taken away. You just don't know what it's going to, you think you're healed, and then all of a sudden something will trigger something. And you're like, holy shit, I can't imagine, going in what you did and going into a fight. I mean, this is something that maybe people don't know. Have you ever spoke about this before? Or?
Yeah, I actually had spoke about it before that fight with Kelly, and, kind of like people know, but I keep like a lot of things, right? If it's asked about it, I talk about them. but I'm not someone that, puts everything out all over the place.
Nobody does. I mean, we
Yeah.
just kind of tripped on this. So
Yeah, no.
yeah.
But like when it's brought up, I openly talk about it, because
Yeah.
it is something that is, part of my life, and it has shaped who I am now.
Yeah, and it's a part of, I think, other people's lives. And hearing from someone like yourself who was able to get in the cage only a few months after a brother, a sibling, somebody you grew up with passed away, and you're going into, on a world, platform and still competing. It's like, how does somebody do that? And so that's kind of even the basis of sometimes why I do this podcast, because I'm in awe of what you women as a collective, women's mixed martial arts, women's MMA, get out there and do on a daily basis, and persevere and do the things that you guys are doing. It's amazing. And you're such shining lights and examples to other people, who might be struggling or going through something of their own, and they just don't know how to get through it. And then they can look to you and say, oh my God, she just went through that too. How did she manage that?
Right.
That's why I ask these questions. I feel like I'm asking the same questions over and over again, but there's a thread, and everybody approaches it differently, but there is a thread of similarities between all of us, as human beings and as women, or men for that matter, dealing with a crisis situation and then putting ourselves in a a precarious situation. But isn't that life, right?
Right. 100%. I definitely think it does, and fighting and being on that stage, it definitely does prepare you, to handle, lots of things in life. And, it's like, I'm at the point now where, I've had so many things happen in life that, other people would be like, wow, I don't know how, I get it all the time. Where people are telling me like, I don't know how you still are the way you are with everything that's happened.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it's like, well, you know what, you gotta just buckle down, you gotta push forward, and you gotta come out on top. And, if you let the things that have happened to you, or the tragedies in your life, dictate and ruin what you can have going forward, now you just let them win, and we can't do that.
Yeah. I'm big into the law of attraction and about creating your own reality, so to speak. And I see that every time I get on an interview with fighters, and you guys are so creating your realities. Like you're in there and you're experiencing so much of life, where sometimes other people might not be, or are afraid to. And in your practice, in your counseling practice, when you're guiding someone, is there ever a reference as a fighter, like or do you ever share stories of yourself, like because you've experienced so much? Or do you think just people sense that from you? I mean, I don't know what it's like, and I know you're obligated to, professional,
Right.
like you can't say, but like, but I mean, you're touching people's lives, and you are on a public platform, and then you're in a private sector business. So, I mean, how do you manage that?
I mean, it's definitely, like I said, it's literally like I live two different lives. My personality stays the same. My personality when I'm, doing therapy and I have, a client in my office, it's the same. I'm the same person. It's just, that's like my professional side. And then, when I'm on, stage or giving my, my post-fight speech, it's still the same person is there. It's just within the context, right?
Yeah.
And I try and stay true to myself, because especially within MMA, a lot of people lose themselves, right? Because they feel the pressure that, oh, you have to behave a certain way, you have to, act a certain way, where you don't need to take on like that jerk persona and just, what's out there a lot now, but you can still be true to yourself. And I try and just keep that like across the board, because it's easy to lose yourself.
Sure. Has there ever been a time in your life where you felt that you were inadequate because you were a woman, or you were told no because you were a woman? And how did you deal with that?
I mean, I haven't, like, it's hard for me. I'm sure there has been situations, but I try to take that blind eye and that oblivion to it, and not really think about it, or
Mm.
not let it be the reality, and kind of just take the approach that it's, well, I'm going to prove you wrong then. All right,
Mm.
you're telling me I can't do this for whatever the reason might be. Well,
Mhm.
I'm doing it double time now. Yeah, and I'm going above and beyond just to show you that I can do it better than you.
Yeah.
We find out with training a lot.
Mm.
We're in a male predominant sport.
Mm.
I've been lucky, and but I've been selective in places that I train at. And I won't train at a place. It could be the best place ever, but if they have that, macho mentality where, like, girls can't be here, I'm not even giving that place time of day.
Yeah.
So all the places that I've trained with, all the coaches that I've had have treated me as an equal. They don't treat me different, better, or worse because I'm a female. It's, no, you're part of the team. And where and a lot of where I train at is, I'm really the only female fighter as far as MMA goes.
Mm.
And I'm training with all the guys, and it's, they have the utmost respect for me. I have the utmost respect for them. But once we step on the mat, it's not, male, female. It's, hey, we're training partners. We're here. We all have the same goal, and we're here to make each other better.
That's awesome. It's such a pleasure to hear that now coming,
Yeah.
like that there's, this change and shift has finally taken place. Cause not so many years ago, it wasn't even like, you wouldn't hear a woman maybe saying what you're saying.
Right.
You know what
And
I
I
mean?
mean, there are still a lot of gyms that don't have that. And you hear horror stories a lot.
Still, huh?
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that shouldn't be happening that are happening.
Mm.
But then it comes on females, us together, right? Bonding together and being like, nope, not acceptable.
Exactly.
And not standing for things.
Mm.
Cause I know if something did happen on my end, or I saw something happening, I wouldn't accept it. I wouldn't just turn a blind eye to it and be like, no, this is not okay. This is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think, the more we kind of bond together, the less those things will happen. But, it is part of society, unfortunately.
Sure. How do you see women's mixed martial arts evolving over the course of the next few years ahead?
I think it's gonna, it's just in the last few years, right? It's like kind of boomed, and it's made major growth, and it's changed a lot. So I think it's just going to continue to grow and become more and more mainstream. Just it's gone, like, through the roof just in the last couple of years. So
yeah, you're part of that. You're a part of that growth. And how do you see yourself in it?
I mean, I just want to try and show everybody that you don't have to be a jerky fighter to get attention, and to get fights, that you can be, you can be respectful, you can be nice, and still get that publicity and get those fights.
That's awesome. So for who would you like to face next in maybe this year? I know it might not matter to you, but if you're moving up the ladder there, to the belt of, who do you see as maybe your next potential opponent? I mean, do you want to refight, Alicia or Kelly? Because there's still, I think, there's still in the rankings in the higher end, or there's even Mina Grusander, and I mean, and we still have Jin Fry as well. She's not technically the champ anymore, but
right.
That belt, nobody else has gotten it, and Smashley didn't do it, so it's like how do you see yourself in the next few months? Because obviously you're going to probably be facing one of those women, so.
Yeah, there's definitely a few girls that are, like, probably on the radar. I definitely, obviously, I want to, avenge those losses at some point. But I don't think right now is, like, the right time. It's like, hey, I think we both, like, all of us need to kind of just grow and build up and go, and then you know, at some point we're probably going to be facing each other again. But there's also, you know, Invicta now has like the Phoenix Rising tournament. So, you know, the only people that are left that really haven't had theirs yet is the Atomweights. So I definitely see myself, you know, hopefully being part of that. Because that's something different, you know, a different platform. And, you know, I think it would just be a really cool experience to do something different.
Yeah, to do a few fights back to back in one night. It's like old school, you know, MMA, like, you know, when the UFC started,
right?
You know, I'm like with Hoist Gracie and all that. I mean, those were crazy exciting events. So for Invicta to be doing that, I mean, I love that show. Like when they do the Phoenix Rising series.
They're really exciting. So, you know, I'd like to definitely be part of that. So that's kind of what like is kind of on the radar at the moment. You know, maybe trying to get a fight within, you know, outside of Invicta to stay active on, you know, until I get my next thing with them, and then, you know, go from there.
Cool. So do you have any shout outs you'd like to give, or way people can get in touch with you on social media or anything like that?
Yep. So you can find me on social media at Lionheart Jill. And on Facebook, it's Jillian DeCoursey. And, you know, I just want to thank my manager, Jason Adams, my coaches at Ring Sport Muay Thai, Long Island MMA, and Long Island Strength and Performance, and all my sponsors. You know, I'm probably gonna forget a few, but you know, I'll go through the ones I could remember off the top of my head. Jasenyo with JEQ Massage Therapy, Fighter Alias, Guard What's Yours, Receptra Natural CBD, Defense Soap,
it's okay. All your
mouth guards, and you know, there are a few others I just can't think of, you know, off the top of my head.
Well, I got to tell you, it was a pleasure talking to you today. I'm hoping to have you on the show again at some point, maybe after one of your, you know, your next fights, or maybe prior to help promote it. But anyways, it was really great to get to know you and to hear more about your background, and what got you into, you know, MMA and just the whole package. It's awesome. And I thank you for coming on the show, Jillian.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, it's awesome to chat. You take care, and can't wait to see you fight again.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. So, wow, how about that? I'd really like to thank Jillian, the Lionheart DeCoursey, for being on the show. She's pretty interesting young lady. How would you like to have her as your mental health counselor? That would be so cool, I think. Anyways, we'd really like to see her fight again soon. Hopefully it will be at that the Phoenix Rising series for the Atomweight division. That would be really cool. Good luck to her, and hope to see her fight soon. If you like what you heard today and are eager to hear more, never miss an episode from Evolve WMMA and moi, you know, Shelley Devine, by remembering to subscribe, download on iTunes, or you can find us on Podomatic and Spotify at Evolve Women's MMA. Or if you prefer to watch, you can find us, you know, always a new episode on YouTube at Women's MMA. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. And don't forget to mention Jillian DeCoursey and how she might have inspired or motivated you. This helps people find the show. Or you can also leave a review at Evolve WMMA. Just leave a comment or something. That would be freaking awesome. And lastly, if nothing else, you can simply follow us at facebook.com/I love WMMA. This is Shelley Devine. Until next time, thanks for listening.